Hi, but you can just simply call me Amazon. Fun fact, did you know that the creators of Final Fantasy and Chrono Trigger, Square, made a racing game? Well, I didn't either until a couple of weeks ago when I was scrolling Twitter. This is when I came across a tweet by a gimmick account called Obscure Game Aesthetics that interested me. The post was 4 pictures. First, a tacky poster. The second picture is a isometric view of 7 cars that looks a lot like Final Fantasy VII. The third picture is a pixel art of a city skyline at night. And the fourth and last picture, a in-game view of a race at night from behind with the iconic AE86 from Initial D in the center of the frame. The game looked just like the game that I had conjured up in my mind after binge-watching Initial D a couple of years ago, a street racing game with an actual story. So I looked into it, and as it turns out, it never left Japan, meaning there's no English version. But wait, what does that link say? A fan translation? Enter Hilltop, the head of the English translation of Racing Lagoon. I went to his Twitter and saw a link to his Patreon page. And before you ask, yeah, I support people on Patreon. No, I'm not a simp, and yeah, I'm still waiting for that video, Joe. The latest Patreon post from Hilltop was a download link, the third night, which basically means the third chapter of the translation. Of course, I downloaded it without a second of a doubt. I wanted to be a part of that action-filled, edge-of-my-seat racing that was the first couple of Fast and the Furious movies and Initial D. So, as it turns out, setting up a PlayStation 1 emulator can be harder than I thought. After downloading and patching the copy of Racing Lagoon I got from Hilltop, I went looking for a PlayStation emulator. EPCSX blah 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 this and that, well, I tried them all, and none of them worked. So, what did I do? I went to the Hilltop Discord and asked. A dude told me about DuckStation, and after setting it up, it worked perfectly. So if you're trying to emulate a PlayStation game, you should probably use DuckStation. Oh, and if you're trying to play Racing Lagoon specifically, you'll need a Japanese version of the BIOS. I forgot and I had to figure it out the hard way. Okay, we're set up. Before we start playing, I'd like to first of all warn you about some spoilers and encourage you to play the game if you like the aesthetic a lot and is not put off by how the graphics have aged. You enjoy street racing games that are arcadey but still not super unrealistic, and you like the JRPG/anime game genre. Secondly, let's talk about why I didn't finish the game. It's a simple question actually, it's not done. The translation, that is. As of writing the script of this video, the game has 3 plus the prologue of its 12 chapters done. And I'm not going to play the game in Japanese, and no, I'm not sorry about that. And finally, this is not really a review, it's more of a first look. A dive into the pool to then emerge on the surface a second or two later. Not a scuba dive into all of its themes and plot lines for hours. I'll do that another time for another game. Let's get through the obligatory backstory segment of the video. Square, or Squaresoft, was a Japanese video game company founded by
Masafumi Miyamoto.
He created an internet cafe-like studio which helped him find
Hironadu Sakaguchi,
the eventual CEO of the company and the creator of the smash hit Final Fantasy. After creating Final Fantasy and releasing it to stellar numbers, the company then went to become one of the biggest in the industry. They're now known as Square Enix after they merged with Enix on the 1st of April 2003. Now, Racing Lagoon. It has a story that might be cheesy and predictable, but it's fun. You're a teenager with nothing to do and you just joined a racing team. Because why not? A story about an underdog with a bad car rising in the world of street racing. There's a love interest, you have a quirky friend and a rival or two. So basically just Initial D and Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. Let's just not talk about the story anymore, plus I basically said everything already. Okay, the graphics. There's some great stuff here and also some really shitty stuff here, so let's start with the cutscenes. While they are definitely iconic, they look dated to an extreme. character models are fuzzy anime protagonists with spiky hair, serious expressions, and JoJo-like poses. This is better than if they tried to make it realistic, but not quite timeless, but definitely charming. Why not timeless? Well, unlike something like Silent Hill, that was arguably helped by its limited hardware that gave the game its now iconic fog, Racing Lagoon tries too much with too little. The technology for the animation style they're trying to do just wasn't a thing at the time. The physics feel off and the characters look ugly instead of stylized. The backgrounds, however, are almost always good. They look a lot like the Final Fantasy style backgrounds, but less fantasy steampunk and more dark cityscapes. It sets a great tone and feel that lives all throughout the game. Great stuff. Now that we're talking about great stuff, the user interface. The UI is, in a single word, awesome. It has a stylish, abstract, minimal look with a white, purple and orange theme. It's easy to read while not being boring, although some of the naming conventions are stupidly outdated and definitely very uncool. But that's also kind of funny, to be honest. When you actually race, the game looks very good for its time. Some simple shadows and a really great overall feel carries this part of the graphics. The biggest downfall is the draft distance, however. It can actually be hard to know which way to turn if you don't pay attention to the map or if you take off your GPS, which warns you about turns. Now, for the most important thing to get right in a racing game except for the driving, the cars. They look great. Of course, by today's standard, they look dated, but at the time this was really good. It's easy to tell what car you're driving and you'll probably find a car or two that you'll enjoy. Overall, a great looking street racing game for the PS1 era.
Initial D!
Before I start talking about the gameplay, I'll briefly mention a thing or two about the music. To be blunt, it's just okay. Oh, and a little reminder, I'm not a musician in any way, so if you actually know something about music, maybe gloss over this part. It's very generic racing game stuff when it comes to the hype tracks, and most of the relaxing ones are also kind of bad. Some standout ones are the menu themes, especially the save and load theme. The intro song is kind of good, but also way too serious and angsty. To be honest, I wanted some great Eurobeat to fill my ears when I started this game, but what I got was just not very good. Unlike something like Ridge Racer, a game with an awesome soundtrack that I've used in the background of my videos, this just feels kind of tacked on with little to no thought. But then again, this is very subjective. Racing Lagoon has a live overview map with an isometric-like view, and this is the way to choose missions and explore the city of Bay Lagoon. It looks good and really sets a great mood. There is some awesome theming here, neon lights and dark alleys, but it's weighed down by being very annoying to traverse, mainly because of the following two things. Controlling the car here sucks, and random encounters. Before I shit on random encounters, I just wanted to say that some amount of random encounters are a good thing. A great way to race a lot in a varied number of places, but when you just want to drive to the other side of the map as quickly as possible to move on in the story, these kind of random encounters just suck. Now, the most important part of a racing game, the dialogue options. From what I've gathered, the choices you're presented in Racing Lagoon really don't matter at all. They all lead to the exact same thing with one or two extra voice lines. Truly, illusion of choice at its finest. Okay, so here we are, the actual driving. Is it good? Yeah, it's great. And, you may ask? Well, it's just that. The first race, I was hooked, immersed. I had to win. I just wanted to win. It can be really exciting in that way. It makes my palms kinda sweaty, to be honest. But don't fret, I'll give you more than that. The driving is equal parts realistic and arcadey. This means that mistakes are appropriately hard to recover from, but the actual driving is easy. Turning your car without skidding out is simple, but this gives you the confidence to go even faster. This is where I struggle, because, and I'm sure a lot of you will relate to this, I hate braking in racing games. It feels so counterintuitive. I'm fine with using the handbrake though. because I love drifting a corner at full throttle to not lose as much speed as possible. This is completely doable in Racing Lagoon and it feels great. But at the same time, mistakes are often punished very harshly, especially if you're not in a huge lead. Knocking into things won't bounce you back, but what it will do is slow you down significantly, almost certainly dooming your chance of winning. The AI is pretty overpowered and never actually runs into anything. It's not too easy to win and it feels great. Overall, good stuff here. So if it was the driving that was holding you back from playing the game, you should probably reconsider. There's some really good stuff here. So, did Square succeed with their high-speed racing RPG? Well, in terms of numbers, definitely not. It was released to the Japanese audience to a lukewarm response, dooming it to not get a worldwide release. This was easy to foresee, merging the easy to understand and fast-paced gameplay in racing with the relatively niche, hard to understand, slow and thoughtful gameplay of most RPGs at the time. But did they succeed in making a CARPG at least? Well, kind of. It had random encounters, side quests, level ups, and an actual story at the center of it. Did they do it well? I'm sad to say that they kind of dropped the ball here. And for the millionth time, I know I haven't finished the game, but we all know exactly how it will end. The main character getting the girl after beating his biggest rival. It's predictable, and that can be okay if the characters within the story are great, the moments they share are good, and if it has a couple of twists or two, but this is just not very good. Sure, the story is fun, but that's just because it's so stupid. And the RPG elements, they just feel tacked on in a lot of ways. The level and upgrade systems don't make your car fast enough for you to feel it, the random encounters are annoying, and the side quest-like races have no stakes. Therefore, they just feel like a menu that can be found in the open world. But at the same time, I feel like Squaresoft found an untapped market here, that if brought to the rest of the world could have been a hit back in 1999. Or at least a hidden gem cult hit type of game. Now it just stands outside all of that. Fallen into obscurity. A game for some fans to translate. A quick 4-picture post of a forgotten game for a Twitter gimmick account to bring up over 20 years after its release.